Imagine leaving a medieval village in the year 1250, where every familiar sound is about to disappear behind you. Behind you remain the blacksmith's hammer, timber houses, rising smoke, and distant church bells marking another ordinary medieval day. Ahead, a narrow road slips beneath towering trees, where daylight quickly fades and the village vanishes from sight. There are no milestones, no guards, and no certainty about what waits beyond the next bend of the forest road. Most people imagine medieval roads as primitive highways, but the reality was far more fragile, uncertain, and unpredictable. Many roads were simply narrow tracks, slowly carved into the earth by generations of merchants, pilgrims, farmers, and wandering messengers. They were rarely paved or straight, constantly reshaped by rain, fallen trees, erosion, and the relentless growth of surrounding vegetation. Despite their fragile appearance, these roads became vital lifelines connecting villages, monasteries, market towns. Along these wilderness routes traveled food, cloth, salt, tools, news, religious ideas, and countless people searching for work or opportunity. Without these narrow roads, many medieval settlements would have remained isolated islands surrounded by an immense and unforgiving wilderness. Not every medieval road served the same purpose, because each route reflected the needs of the communities that depended upon it. Some roads linked neighboring villages, allowing farmers to move livestock, grain, timber, and everyday supplies between nearby settlements throughout the year. Others became regional trade routes where merchants transported salt, iron, wool, wine, and valuable goods across considerable distances. Certain woodland paths guided pilgrims toward monasteries, shrines, and cathedrals, while quieter tracks served hunters, foresters, and royal messengers. Together, these roads formed a growing network shaped by generations of travelers rather than by any centralized medieval authority or grand design. Unlike modern highways, medieval forest roads were not engineered according to fixed plans, measurements, or standardized methods of construction. Instead, they evolved gradually through repeated use, as countless travelers followed the safest and most practical routes across difficult terrain. Whenever deep mud, fallen trees, or flooding blocked a familiar path, people naturally created another route around the obstacle. Over many years, these temporary detours often became permanent roads, replacing older tracks that the forest slowly reclaimed for itself. The wilderness continually reshaped the road, while generations of travelers continually reshaped their understanding of the wilderness in return. Nature never stopped testing these fragile routes, and every season introduced new obstacles that travelers could neither predict nor completely control. Autumn rains transformed firm ground into deep mud, trapping heavy carts, slowing horses, and exhausting both people and animals alike. Tree roots pushed through the surface, while fallen leaves concealed loose stones, hidden holes, and slippery ground beneath the forest canopy. Powerful storms could block an important woodland road within hours, forcing travelers to abandon familiar routes and search for uncertain alternatives. Even well-used paths demanded constant attention, because the forest quietly reclaimed every neglected section with remarkable speed and persistence. Not every medieval road served the same purpose, because each route reflected the needs of the communities that depended upon it. Some roads linked neighboring villages, allowing farmers to move livestock, grain, timber, and everyday supplies between nearby settlements throughout the year. Others became regional trade routes where merchants transported salt, iron, wool, wine, and valuable goods across considerable distances. Certain woodland paths guided pilgrims toward monasteries, shrines, and cathedrals, while quieter tracks served hunters, foresters, and royal messengers. Together, these roads formed a growing network shaped by generations of travelers rather than by any centralized medieval authority or grand design. Unlike modern highways, medieval forest roads were not engineered according to fixed plans, measurements, or standardized methods of construction. Instead, they evolved gradually through repeated use, as countless travelers followed the safest and most practical routes across difficult terrain. Whenever deep mud, fallen trees, or flooding blocked a familiar path, people naturally created another route around the obstacle. Over many years, these temporary detours often became permanent roads, replacing older tracks that the forest slowly reclaimed for itself. The wilderness continually reshaped the road, while generations of travelers continually reshaped their understanding of the wilderness in return. Nature never stopped testing these fragile routes, and every season introduced new obstacles that travelers could neither predict nor completely control. Autumn rain could transform an ordinary day's journey into hours of exhausting progress, especially for wagons carrying heavy loads. Steep hills presented another challenge, forcing roads to follow long, gradual slopes instead of the shortest possible direction. Longer routes often proved faster and safer, because gentle slopes protected both people and wagons from dangerous climbs and uncontrolled descents.
Streams and rivers often determined where roads could exist, making reliable crossings as important as the roads themselves.
Bridges required constant maintenance, because a single collapsed crossing could sever an important route for weeks or even months. Maintaining a road rarely meant rebuilding it. More often, it meant removing obstacles before travel came to a complete halt. Communities, monasteries, and nearby landowners often shared responsibility for keeping important roads open throughout the changing seasons. Along the busiest routes, simple roadside shelters and stopping places helped travelers rest before continuing through the surrounding wilderness. Even the best road offered no guarantee of safety, because long stretches of wilderness still separated one community from the next. Without maps or numbered roads, travelers relied on familiar landmarks, local knowledge, and experience to remain on the correct route. On important routes, simple wooden signposts or carved boundary markers sometimes appeared where unfamiliar travelers might otherwise lose their way. For experienced travelers, the road itself became the map, its surface preserving the choices made by countless people before them. These roads did far more than connect places. They carried commerce, religion, knowledge, law, and communication across medieval Europe. A medieval road was never merely a strip of earth. It was the fragile thread that held distant communities together across an immense wilderness. Without these forest roads, many villages would have remained isolated, unable to exchange goods, information, or support beyond their immediate surroundings.
Merchants, pilgrims, messengers, monks, craftsmen, and farmers often depended upon the very same road, even when their destinations were completely different.
With every passing generation, the road recorded countless journeys, while the forest silently erased nearly every trace beyond its edges. Whenever a route fell out of regular use, the forest reclaimed it with remarkable speed, often within only a few generations. The survival of a medieval road depended less on construction than on constant use, because every passing traveler helped keep the route alive. Over time, these enduring routes shaped where villages expanded, where markets gathered, and where new communities gradually emerged. As these roads endured, villages increasingly positioned mills, inns, workshops, and marketplaces where travelers naturally gathered along their course. Over the centuries, these woodland roads gradually became the framework upon which regional travel and communication continued to develop. These enduring roads gradually united distant regions, allowing people, goods, customs, and ideas to move far beyond the boundaries of a single village. Many of these medieval routes survived for centuries, later influencing the placement of newer roads, towns, and transportation networks. Across medieval Europe, these forest roads quietly connected isolated lives, allowing entire regions to function despite the vast wilderness between them. Even after kingdoms changed and generations passed away, many of these ancient routes continued guiding travelers through the same forests. Although forests constantly changed, the direction of the road often remained surprisingly stable, preserving the memory of movement across the landscape. By following the same paths generation after generation, medieval people transformed simple tracks into lasting historical landscapes. Every surviving forest road reminds us that medieval Europe was connected not by vast highways, but by... For medieval travelers, the greatest achievement of these roads was not speed, but certainty. They offered a dependable path through an unpredictable wilderness. Beyond the edges of the road lay uncertainty, but within its narrow boundaries, travelers found direction, familiarity, and the confidence to continue. In the medieval world, a road through the forest represented far more than a destination. It represented the possibility of reaching one. Yet the road never truly conquered the forest. It existed only because the wilderness allowed it to remain open from one season to the next. People often believed they chose the road, but in reality, the forest decided where every road could safely exist. For centuries, countless travelers trusted these narrow roads, rarely knowing how completely the surrounding landscape had determined every step of their journey. These roads did not overcome the forest. They simply revealed the few places where people could live and travel alongside it. Every generation inherited these roads from those who came before, adding only a few more footprints before passing them to the next. Long after individual travelers were forgotten, the road itself remained, quietly preserving the memory of countless ordinary lives. The forest always remained, the travelers always changed, but the road endured between them,